Randy Rhoads. What if he didn't go to Ozzy and he stayed in Quiet Riot? Do you think they would have eventually made it? And do you think they would have made an album eventually that would have sounded like Metal Health?
With Randy?
Yes.
No. I think, and it's hard to look back and not see it through rose-colored glasses. Randy had to become the Randy with Ozzy that we talk about. Rudy says it all the time. When Randy joined Blizzard and when Rudy got his audition, Randy was still kind of the Randy that he had left with Quiet Riot, but he was all of a sudden seeing this growth in this massive uptick in both his persona, his stage presence, and obviously his playing style. And part of that came from his own motivation, but he's with Ozzy. He's in a much more prominent position. They were there, and you say, well, why couldn't they have just written this when he was in the band before? I think, and it's interesting, is what we were looking at, is if you look at it, other than Metal Health, which we said was a rewrite, and the Slade cover, other than, let's see, 1, 2, Kevin has writing credits on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of them except Battle Axe, obviously, which is a guitar solo. And Carlos has 3 co-credits. Kevin's writing all this stuff. And so the question is how does Kevin not come up with this stuff beforehand and was able to do something earlier than this, whether it's with Randy or because he had his DeBro band.
Yeah.
And we didn't hear anything from them, did we? And so I don't know. It's just one of those, hey, y'all struggled. Here's karma saying, okay, here's our handshake deal at the crossroads. Yep, we'll give you your fame. You'll be huge, but it's going to last this long, like Cinderella. It's going to tick midnight, and your carriage is going to turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot of those bands, like even with Whitesnake, like they were at an absolute stone cold peak in America, only for a short lifespan.
Very short.
And there just seems to be an interesting sort of lineage of all these bands that have struggled. They finally get the shot, have enormous success, but they can't follow it up.
Right.
I think with Randy, they would have been signed eventually because there was so much happening around 82, 83. Def Leppard was way up there. Van Halen was major. And a lot of the record companies were looking at England, as you normally do, and seeing that there was a lot of commercial success with the meat and potatoes rock of the new wave of British heavy metal. Motorhead, #1 in the charts. Saxon, top 5. Iron Maiden. So, those bands weren't going to work in America because they were very sort of meat and potatoes, and American audiences didn't sort of gravitate to that. They like a little bit more pizzazz. I think Quiet Riot inevitably would have been signed with Randy, but whether it would have sounded like Metal Health, I'm not so sure. But Randy anecdotally has provided in interviews that he was a fan of British rock in the early 70s. So who knows? He may have pulled out a sweet cover or something along those lines.
Well, I also think it's important to say, and if we're talking about Leopard and we're talking about 83, they went through all kinds of post issues. Hysteria is nowhere near compositionally and musically what Pyromania was. Totally different focused artist, which is why in the super, super rare occasion, a band is gone for years, comes back after a mega album and goes even bigger. Unheard of. Motley never did Shout at the Devil again.
No.
They changed. And that's the interesting thing. And you said it, I think, rightly so. We get another Quiet Riot album. Like, okay. Boom. Another Slade cover. And you're like, what?